Hello, and welcome to the Argyle CIO Leadership Forum, Strategic Technology 2025. My name is Nick with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our esteemed speaker. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booths from the main agenda page, which include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat, and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Now, without further delay, I would like to introduce our speaker, Bill O'Neill, co-founder, SVP Engineering and Product with Quiq. We're super excited to have Bill with us for a thought leadership presentation titled Hindsight is 2020, Lessons Learned from Creating and Deploying Generative AI Agents. Welcome, Bill. Over to you.
Thanks very much, Nick. Thanks, everybody, for being here today, and I appreciate your time. I know your time's as valuable as mine, and you have a lot going on. So what I've tried to do here is condense some of the key learnings that I've come away with over the last 2 years. We've deployed over 30 different AI agents in the industry, and these are general themes that I've seen pretty much every time. And I thought by sharing them with you, when you're looking to go deploy AI agents in your own businesses, these are some things to look out for and kind of keep in mind. So I'm going to kind of go through the typical phases for development, but I'm going to go through it through the lens of what you might be looking at that's different when you're playing large language models, those generative AI. I'll be covering each one of these phases in more detail to get in there, but I do want to get some things out there first. I'm going to be covering things that look to avoid some dead ends, surprises, pitfalls, and I'm going to be giving you a broad approach, general ideas to what to look at that you can go research further on your own or ask me later offline. Always happy to help out. There's two terms I do want to kind of get out there today. One is AI agents. There's lots of industry buzz around AI agents. I'll be speaking specifically today about AI agents for customer experience, whether it's e-commerce or customer care, something that helps your customers get things done and represents your brand really well. There's also a new term in the industry called agentic AI, and what it basically is the AI around agentic, so it's AGENTIC. You can check it out. I'll be throwing that term out as well. You might be hearing it. This is all underneath that umbrella for like large language model workflows or LLM orchestrations. So those are some terms I just want you familiar with before we get going, because I will be using them. All right, so jumping in the planning phase. One thing I do want us to all kind of consider is, begin with the end in mind. Where are we and where we're going? So for digital support, it all started in the 1960s with phone, and phone's still important for us. Now that it changed in the course of late 1990s with the advent of the web. We had email, web chat, and a new channel and new ways of interacting with our customers. And then that had a different, evolution into that in 2007 with the iPhone, and that really allowed the consumer to have our brand in their pocket and continue to communicate with us at their own convenience. But one thing I want to point out here is if you look at all these, the consumers had to know how to talk to our brands. They had to know how to go to our websites, how to navigate our mobile apps, how to navigate our chatbots. That is all changing in a really amazing way here with AI agents. To me, it's like being on the ship of Star Trek. As a little kid, I watched Star Trek a lot, and be able to talk, see Kirk talk to the ship and be like, that's impressive. I don't think we'll ever get there. But we actually are getting there today. With the tools that large language models provide and some of the things we'll outline today, like this is where the world's going. It's predicted that 10% of all e-commerce transactions will be assisted by AI in the coming year. And also, I predict that AI agents will become the face of your company in 2 to 5 years, maybe 10 years. But my prediction is that these things will be as capable and then eventually more capable than your websites. And these AI agents will be talking to your guests and presenting information to your guests in a way your guests understand. So now the responsibility is inverted. These AI agents need to understand your guests rather than your guests going to try to understand your brand. And I say this because, yes, this is a really ambitious future. But as you're laying all this stuff out, this is more than just writing a chatbot that's going to be relegated to the corner of your website. Really think about how your brand's going to line behind this. It's a really ambitious goal. You don't have to get there right now, but just do have that in mind. But in the beginning, keep things small, keep things simple. Give your AI agents a very simple and specific job. Don't get overwhelmed, but do plan for a more ambitious future. So some things I have learned, and these are some things common sense at this point, but trust me, they're not. One is a realistic scope. Large language models can't be everything. And also I've seen some customers get so excited by the power of large language models, so they jump in and they go. And only after they launch do they realize they haven't articulated business value and what these things should actually do. So make sure that you hold the hands of your business people, the business folks, get realistic scope. Also, AI is fantastic, but it's not going to replace humans, not all the way. Like we might be able to resolve 60% of tier 1 support with higher CSAT than human agents and higher quality, but humans are never going to be completely eliminated by AI as the way it is. They're just needed to be kept in the loop. So consider how not only are you going to have a realistic understanding of scope and define really clear objectives, but if you're on the IT side of the house like I am, make sure you have a business stakeholder as well. I've never seen an AI project go well with just IT or just with the business. They do need to be with each other. So get somebody in the business side, really shares your vision. They have the wall, the purse strings, and also they have the faith to keep pushing this through with you, because you're going to be doing some really bold and creative things, and you need to have both sides of the house aligned. And now when it comes to humans, yes, there's still going to be humans in the loop for sure. Make sure that everything you're doing with AI is not negatively impacting your humans. Put analytics around this so you can measure efficiency and reduction in handle time. That's also really important. And then don't lose track of the fundamentals. We still need measurable KPIs and success metrics, and I'll get to that in a little bit as well. And then finally, when they will say, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Large language models are not going to solve everything. So pick the right model. And what I mean by this, I'll get into this later. Sometimes we don't even use generative models. There's different generative models out there. You're going to be mixing and matching the right models. And sometimes you're not going to be using this at all. There's times for speed that we use Google Dialogflow to do intent analysis, to do quick routing, because it's so much faster than large language models. So anyway, my point is just be mindful and thoughtful about how you're applying large language models in AI. And then finally, there's this, about a year ago, there was a lot of fascination with the blank text box. You just type in and you talk to the AI agent and you get back responses. That's still great, but don't forget all the things we've learned along the way. UI, UX tooling, these are things that are still important today. For example, date time pickers, list pickers, they're still really nice UI components that really help to drive the user experience, but don't make them static. What I mean is don't just give them a static menu, make the menu and the UI dynamic and leverage everything we've learned up to this point as well. And now I want to jump into talking about the agent persona. This is really important. And what I've found is most of our customers have the most fun with this, and this is truly can be fun, is give your agent a name and a persona. Some of the more boring stuff, but some things you really need to consider is if you have governance and compliance issues. For example, we work with a very large airline, and they're under the Department of Transportation regulations. And so some responses have to be canned and not generative. But that was important to know that in the beginning so our flows could handle that. And then also there's going to be bias management. Whenever you're dealing with lots of data and lots of generative systems, there's a tendency for bias management, hallucination. So make sure you have guardrails around that. I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. But the final part here, and the part that I find the most fun with, is, I'll get this working here, is be creative, have fun with this. If you've ever gone out and played with different models like Midjourney, Refusion, SoundDraw, Stable Diffusion, you understand the beauty of how creative these things can be when you allow them to run all by themselves. Now, of course, we don't want that complete agency given to our AI agents all the time. And it kind of depends on knowing the demographic and the brand identity you're working with. So for example, if I'm working with Chase Bank, I'm going to have a lot more guardrails around the persona and not going to let it be as creative necessarily. But let's say I'm working for a more consumer brand like Mountain Dew or GoPro or something like that. I might want the agents to be, let it be more creative, give it more agency, because the risk is lower and it's more playful and appeals to the demographic. So think about that as you're going to define your own AI agents as well. And lastly, this new agent is going to solve a lot of rote tasks, and it's going to be available 24/7. It's going to be available on the phones, whatever. It's going to make your brand more hospitable. It's become your new brand ambassador. So really get behind this and have fun with it. Next thing I want to talk about is data and RAG. RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. Basically what it does, it combines the strength of information retrieval and advanced text generation. And this approach helps bridge the gap between vast amounts of available data and the need for intelligent, really context-aware machine-generated text. Now, RAG is really important. I'm not going to minimize it, but really it's becoming table stakes at this point. Everyone's doing RAG. To me, RAG by itself is just fancy search. I'm going to get into how you can use RAG in a more intelligent way, but this definitely is not the end result we want. We want to get beyond Q&A. Guests are not coming to your website just to ask questions. They're coming to get things done. And then also how we're going to actually use that knowledge to augment the flows, which I'll talk to you in a second, really start to build that future version. So RAG and all their data you're ingesting builds a greater vision here. So as you're starting to put together, you're sketching this out on your whiteboard and you're starting to figure out some of the non-functional pieces. There are new things that are specific to large language models. One is like large LLM data privacy. We all heard horror stories where data is used for future training. What you want to do is make sure you have the contracts in place with your contractors that will say all my data will never be used in training. Just make sure that's set up with those foundational providers when you start working with them. Also, token quotas. About 18 months ago, this was really difficult. There was not enough GPUs and hardware in the world to meet the demand. That's now catching up, so token quotas are starting to become more manageable. But just know that you're going to have some quotas, and you need to make sure you have enough quota so that you don't run out during peak seasons like Black Friday or something like that. Also, model tuning and fine tuning. We've actually really never needed to fine tune models. The foundational models themselves are more than powerful, but if you're going to want to do that or maybe bring your own model, make sure you consider that as well. The next part to me, I feel, is the most exciting part. And this is getting your APIs. APIs are going to help your guests get things done and accomplish their goals. So what you need to do is you need to look at your API inventory for your mobile app, your websites, and apply those against the business requirements. You might identify some gaps you need to fill, but really pull all these together because this is how you're going to solve really meaningful problems. And also the most powerful APIs require authentication to really do something powerful. Make sure you think through security and the authentication models as well. And then lastly, and the part that really where this all comes together is where you start to take data, and I'm talking about RAG from the last slide, and now you start to put that together with customer scope data and your knowledge and the APIs to create really the experience you want. And so a sample experience might be this, and this is a true use case we've implemented, is I'm flying on this airline, my flight's been canceled, and I go talk to the AI agent. The AI agent needs to understand who I am, pull the current state for what I'm impacted by. Let's say I'm impacted by a hurricane. It needs to know not to offer me vacation rentals or packages or anything like that. Like, I need to solve this problem at hand. So it's going to proactively offer me intents that I might want to go after. And then it's going to take the knowledge that's specific for that, like flight cancellation. So rather than pulling the whole knowledge base, we're going to give it the knowledge that's specific to the task. And this really allows the large language models to generate very targeted responses. And you couple that with APIs for like changing flights, and you can start to see you're going to create a really great guest experience. The guest is going to be understood even before they start talking to the AI agent. And then once they do talk to it, the AI agent is going to be an agent on their behalf and doing great things for them. Now I want to talk about, these are some other things you're going to run into as well, potentially. So I'm going to call them out now to make sure you're aware of them. One is your existing staff. If you have existing conversational designers and they've been on your team for, let's say, 3 years, just know that you're going to need to work with them to upscale their talent or bring in new talent. There is a new job title that's coming out, and that's AI engineers. And AI engineers are going to be everything conversational designers did, which is the user experience of the chatbots. In addition, they're going to be doing all the new things that are required for large language models. They're going to have to understand RAG. They're going to need to understand data ingestion transformations, how to write prompts. They're probably going to be writing Python code in some instances. And they're also going to be working on the user experience. But you need this holistic skill set to actually get something like this done. How you want to tackle this is kind of up to you. You can hire it, maybe you outsource it, maybe you have somebody like Quiq. We can build the actual initial build for you and then hand you over the tools that you can maintain it. Maybe you hire someone else. It's up to you to decide, but I'm just letting you know, like, if you have conversational designers on staff, you're probably going to run into some gaps in their skills. And then finally, we all have limited budgets, and unfortunately, it's true. And so we need to decide where you're going to innovate. A lot of consumers that I've worked with want to spend their innovation budgets working on those APIs from the previous slides, really building out a rich set of tools that can be used by the AI agents to get really a lot of things done for your guests. Some bigger companies we worked with who have bigger IT budgets, maybe 200 or 300 people on staff dedicated to writing code, they might pull things off the shelf and do their own large language model orchestration. But a lot of businesses don't necessarily want to focus on LLM orchestration, putting the tools together, but rather just getting things done and then use an LLM orchestration tool. So these are some things to really consider as you're planning your projects. These are all things I've seen have bitten and surprised people along the way. So now we're in development, and these are some best practices I've learned along the way, but with the lens and the nuance of large language models. The first is regression testing, and this is different than what you might be used to, and also it's extremely also more important. So we all understand regression testing and why it's important. And then really you do need to mock all those beautiful APIs you've built, and you really need a robust regression suite. And if you look at autonomous driving paradigm, what they will do is they will go out and they'll create hundreds and thousands of tests. And because this is generative and it's kind of squishy logic, if you will, you can't have the same assertions that if this is true, this is the response you're going to get back. What you'll have instead is you'll have a large language model looking at the responses of the large language model, but trained in a different way to say, this response is close enough within threshold to the target response, so the test passes. Because generative is going to text it will be different. Where this becomes really important is the foundational models like ChatGPT, they're going to deprecate models, and when they deprecate, those are not trivial changes. They will break your existing production AI agents. And so you want a really robust regression suite, not only for initial development, but as model deprecations occur, you want to make sure you're prepared to test those deprecations and get out an updated AI agent. I can't stress this enough. This surprised a lot of companies. Of course, always keep in mind engineering best practices, version control, seamless rollback, staging environment. Now we're getting into observability, and this is a little bit different for large language models, and large language models are just by nature opaque. If you've used ChatGPT, you understand this. You give it a question, comes back a response, you have no idea what happened. It just is magic or it wasn't. And when it's not magic, you need the ability to monitor, understand, and interpret those internal states, the decision-making process that your AI agent took. This is essential to understanding how and why AI agents behave in certain ways, particularly as these systems become more complex and autonomous and capable of making more decisions on their own. You're going to need this debugger to look deeply into how they're behaving. This also gets harder when you start to consider large language models take time to process, and this is the inference time. You're starting to see that to get more things done, you'll be running maybe 9 prompts in parallel. Well, one of those prompts break or don't return the results you want, you need to quickly understand what's going on. You also need to see the costs, the token usages, the inference times, everything else that goes inside of this. So if you don't build this now, you're going to be struggling later when hard questions are being asked on why your AI agents are not behaving correctly. You need this observability. The next thing you're going to want to make sure you're thinking about is back to the original objectives, making sure you have objective alignment, your conversation data and goal states. Often with the digital assistants, when we create them, we'll define goal states. If you get here, it's great. If you get here, it's bad. Make sure those are defined, and then you'll have alerting on those things as well. So if you start to exceed certain thresholds, and then supporting analytics. And again, this is where you're going to use a large language model trained differently to look at the output of your AI agents. And we use this to start to anticipate drift, to see if the AI agents have picked up new intents. I'll talk about this a little bit more, but also sentiment analysis and really a lot of intelligence. So large language models, to evaluate large language models is certainly a thing. And it's pretty cool. And then finally, hallucination detection. Sadly, LLMs hallucinate. It's getting better, but they still hallucinate. And so you're going to need to have a claim verification in place to prevent hallucinations. They can be prevented. And what we do here at Quiq, and some other companies kind of do this as well, we will have a different model. It's not generative. It's going to take in data and output 0 to 1. What it does is it gathers the evidence, it gathers the conversation state, and it takes the customer's question. That's in one bucket. Then it takes the response from the large language model, and it says with confidence, knowing this evidence, how close is this response to being true? Low confidence responses are thrown out, and then the AI agent can clarify questions from the user or maybe escalate to a human agent. But just make sure you have hallucination detection and claim verification in place, because it will be needed. These things do hallucinate. So some other best practices, and just for you to think about how you want to roll this out. is start with agent facing and public facing. So agent facing, what you might want to do is take your AI agent and have it working with your staff internally. They'll be interacting with it. It's kind of a way to lower risk because you get a sense if it's going to be a reasonable offering to the public, and also makes your agents more productive. It allows them to, sorry, I just see a question here. It allows them to be augmented by the knowledge, makes the agents more effective. You might have some business process automation. If you go this route, just be mindful that when you release that AI agent, you might want to strip out some of the knowledge and some of the functionality. For example, they may not want to issue credits or order refunds, things like that. So up to you if you want 2 agents, 1 agent. This is an interesting way of doing it. Also, multiple modalities. Really, modalities means ways of talking to it, and how LLMs can understand text, voice, images, all those things. This is a modality. In customer service and e-commerce, the best thing you're going to see is combining the voice and the digital experiences together. So for example, I might take a picture of a broken item, a barcode, something like that, or I might be on the phone making an appointment change, and rather than being read out a ton of, I'm changing my appointment, here's all the new appointment times, text it to them and let them type it on the phone, and then that automatically updates the voice conversation. So when you're looking at modalities, large language models for voice and whatnot, like DeepGram, super capable. Definitely consider that. And then finally, comprehensive change management. A lot of people are scared by AI. A lot of people don't understand AI. It's really up to you to have a responsibility to go to the organization and train and educate people. And then finally, this last thing is a feedback loop. You're really going to need the tooling to gather feedback, bugs, and ideally it's going to be in the same system that the conversation's at, and allow people to flag and tag conversations and add comments so that your AI engineer can quickly get back and look at that. I don't necessarily care what tool you use, just don't use Excel. You'll be hating life. All right, AI orchestration. So now we're here to kind of decide how you're going to put this all together. You can pull stuff off the shelf for sure. You can go out there and look at Hugging Face, LangChain, Haystack, vector databases, prompt flow, DAG workflows, all these things. And if you have the IT budget and these are fun problems to solve, yeah, go for it. But also a lot of us just need to get things done. So now you're going to build, you're going to buy. I've seen WYSIWYG editors for AI agents. None of them do what you need to do. So now this is Quiq's AI Studio. There's other things out there, but shameless promotion here. What this is this is our AI Studio. It encompasses all the best practices that we talked about before here. Here you can see the conversations, you can see the turns, you can have the observability to go in and look at things. You can replay prompts, you can change the prompts, replay the conversations. You're going to need a tool like this in order to really manage these AI assistants once they're out in production. Okay, so we're rounding the gap. I wish I had hours with all of you because this is such an exciting topic, but I only have so much time, so kind of getting into this last thing here. One thing I've really learned through all this is there's really high expectations around AI agents and very low trust. They're going to solve every business problem and destroy your business at the same time. And so those are the realities that I've learned. And one thing is, if you have BAs who like BRDs, business required documents, they're going to have a hard time writing BRDs because they've never seen anything like this before. So what I highly recommend is create an early preview that's internal and hand it over to your subject matter experts. Let them take it for a run. Let your BAs come in and then start to create the user stories. I can't tell you how much time this actually saves, because this is the first time that these people are going to be seeing your data and your processes in their hands, and they're going to start to come up with user stories on what they really want this thing to be. You're going to pay this price no matter what. Early, it's better to pay it early and in the development phase, so make sure you look at that. That same loop is going to happen once you hand over to QA. I've never seen a UAT cycle go faster with Gen AI than with traditional bots. Never. What happens now is you get the QA teams in there and starting to play with it. One thing to look at for here is QA loves to go try to trick the LLM. And while that is important, don't have them focus there. Have them focus on real world use cases. Make sure this thing is robust and handling real world use cases. Yeah, and then towards the end, try to trick it. Make sure it doesn't hallucinate. Make sure it doesn't talk like a pirate, those things. But what I recommend is, rather than introduce the complexity into the large language model, instead escalate to human agents for those corner cases. Don't overcomplicate the builds, especially in your milestone 1. And then finally, once you go live, what I recommend is you go live in a limited window, maybe 2 hours a day. You put the generative AI assistant into the public and then you go back to your regular agent. Because what I have seen is I've seen LLM agents held to a higher standard than human agents. They were 100% code conversation review. Your C level is definitely going to be hitting it and playing with it. And their voice is very loud in the room. And so you're going to want that flexibility to identify new requirements. And there probably will be some fire drills that come out, because once the public starts using it, it's going to be used in ways that you did not anticipate. So this cycle also has always surprised every customer. These go live cutovers are no longer just a trivial event. And so finally we're launched and we're live and we're feeling good. This thing's amazing. It's doing all the great things: higher CSAT, high resolution rates. We're seeing our agent handling times drop. Things are looking great. So we're not quite done here. We never really are with these things. And because if you really embrace the technology, you're going to learn a lot of great things. So starting at the bottom here, you want to make sure you're looking at your KPIs, detecting drift. And that's all just, I think that's well understood. Going up, though, to the blue here is a trend analysis. You're having large language models evaluating what the other AI agent's doing, and you're going to start to see emerging trends. And this is going to allow you to really keep a pulse in the business and see if there's some new issue arising in the market, or allow how your demographic might be changing. So that was a deeper insights that really haven't been available before now. Maybe there's new intents that are coming up. And then finally, make sure that you have that feedback tool like I talked about in the beginning, where everyone's used to using it to reporting issues, and then get over to the AI engineers quickly and get some resolution. So I know I talked a lot. I know I talked fast. I love this topic so much. I could talk for hours on it. But I really want to give you an overview of the potential mines out there in the minefield and kind of what to look for. And these are painful lessons I've learned, not just once, but repeatedly. Otherwise, I wouldn't share them with you. So I hope this is helpful for you. As early adopters right now, if you think about the World Wide Web, we're just writing HTML right now. Like, we're excited an image shows up. That's where we're at with generative AI. The equivalents for like JavaScript and mobile apps have yet to be discovered. So we are the pioneers. I encourage all of us, and applaud all of us to support each other, because we're cutting new ground together, and that's scary. So we need to support each other, because the vision of what we can build is like nothing we ever really thought about. That Star Trek analogy I talked about in the beginning, it really can be a reality. Like, we have the tools now to understand deeply and serve our guests in ways we've never thought possible before. So I look forward to seeing what y'all build, answering questions, building stuff together, and maybe me or someone else in this room is going to have like the next breakthrough that becomes like the JavaScript for generative AI. But thank you very much for your time. And Nick, I'd love to talk about any audience questions you might have at this point.
Yeah, great. Okay, Bill, here's one. What approaches do you recommend for knowledge management to ensure an AI agent stays updated and accurate over time?
Fantastic question. We have this a lot. What we will do typically is you're going to be pulling knowledge from disparate knowledge bases. You might be getting, for example, spreadsheets, which are pretty static, but those might be your BPO saying, here's the top call drivers. But normally what we do is we attach to knowledge bases. And we ingest typically 24 hours, especially in the beginning, because what's going to happen is you're going to be bringing in knowledge. Your business stakeholders are going to be like, well, I don't like the generative response to this question. And then using those observability tools, you can say, well, that was because the knowledge base is missing this information. That happens all the time, especially early on. And so that feedback will go back to the team who manages the knowledge base. They'll update the knowledge base, which just makes the knowledge base better and be more thorough. And then you have ingestion pipelines, which will ingest the knowledge base on a nightly flow, transform it, index it, slam it in the vector databases, and make it available for evaluation the next day. So that's typically how I see knowledge bases, especially if there's gonna be a lot of high churn initially. I do recommend like 24-hour ingestion and transformation on those.
Great. And I think that may be all we have time for, Bill. But I really want to thank you again for such an incredible thought leadership. And I want to thank everyone else for joining us today. This session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event. As a reminder, please be sure to check out the prizes and raffle rules section to see how you can earn points for the chance to win one of several prizes. Our next session will begin after the break at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, which will be a thought leadership titled Revolutionary Cost Savings, AI-Powered Shipping Management. Please click the join button that will appear on your screen to be redirected to the next session, and we look forward to seeing you there.